obviously, I'm watching a scary story. What I will say about this video is, I've watched this. Well, I haven't watched it before, but I watched like the first few minutes of it. I watched the first few minutes of it, and well, life happens. What happened? I wasn't recording. I found out in the video that I was making that when I was recording the whole time, I wasn't recording. But look, this is True Thanksgiving Horror Story 1.
This has got to be downright one of the most scariest Thanksgiving stories out there. So let's just get straight to the animation. I lived alone in an apartment with my pet Doberman Toby. I had moved away from my parents' place ever since I got a full-time job as an IT tech. Thanksgiving was just around the corner, and I had planned to stay by my parents' place for a few days after months of being away. However, although I was looking forward to it, one thing made me anxious: my mother. Being the eldest son who was still single, the task of caring for the woman who raised me was entrusted to me since she was now suffering from dementia. One moment she'd be on cloud 9, and then all of a sudden she'd be acting out of pocket like the girl possessed from the Exorcist movie. And if that wasn't creepy enough, I even saw her in the living room once talking to herself, laughing and crying simultaneously as she stabbed one of our family portraits displayed on the table with a kitchen knife.
He's not part of the family! He's not part of the family! He's not part of the family!
I had no idea what she was talking about.
I guess he's not a part of the family.
Seeing a lot of videos online, everything was leading back to dementia. I didn't know how to respond to the situation, afraid she'd be ridiculed if friends or relatives dropped by the house. However, I vividly remember one of the videos talking about the ability of animals being able to alleviate the suffering of people diagnosed with chronic ailments. So that's when I stopped by the house with Toby one day and was greeted by my mother at the front door. She stared at me for quite a while, making me uneasy. So to withdraw from this awkward situation, I gently pulled my dog by the leash, thinking I should bring him inside the house. However, to my surprise, my mother gripped my other hand ever so tightly, saying,
"Get rid of that rodent! You understand me? I don't feel good around that dog!"
I replied, "Mom, it's just Toby. He used to live in this house before.
She got a Doofenshmirtz
I took him
chin.
away when I moved out. Can you at least try to remember that?" However, she frowned upon me, mistaking it for disrespect.
How dare you? You're in no position to defy me.
Mom, if I'm coming over for Thanksgiving, then so is
To
Toby.
hell with that dog. You only want him for yourself. You can't fool me.
People around me would always talk about patience, reminding me that her behavior was simple.
This is the thing. So what if I want him to myself? You're telling me to get rid of him. Aren't you literally telling me to get rid of him?
Result of her ongoing condition. But there's a limit to everything. Once the cup is full, everything would fall into disarray. Frustrated, I shouted, "No, he's not going anywhere! You're the reason why I wanted to move out!" Frightened, Toby ceased to wag his tail, slowly hiding behind my legs, and at that moment, I saw my mother's eyes brimming with hate. Then, seconds later, her mood changed again, as she smiled
Change
and
it.
said,
All right, we'll have it your way. Come in, little boy. Who's a good boy? Yes, you are.
She caressed Toby's head and brought him inside as I stood there delirious, and nothing out of the ordinary transpired in the days that followed. However, just when I thought she had gotten closer to Toby, I heard her hollering in the dining room one night. I got up to check on her and saw that she was distraught by all the broken plates scattered on the floor. Then, as soon as she saw me, she yanked me by the collar and said,
Donate this dog. Give him away or leave him in...
Ma'am, I apologize.
me by the collar and said,
Donate this dog. Give him away or leave him in the forest. I don't care. Just get rid of him.
I didn't know what to make of it, since Toby was well behaved the entire time. For all I know, my mother could have been the one responsible for all the broken plates, coercing me to cave in. I ended up getting a broom and sweeping the sharp pieces of glass away, while I saw my mother scamper to her room,
What are you sweeping?
leaving me to clean up the mess. I figured I'd bring Toby around the next time time we had dinner, in hopes that if she saw my father around Toby, then maybe she'd eventually warm up to him. One night, I went into the kitchen to get myself a glass of water and could hear my mother's voice in the living room talking to our dog. I didn't want to frighten her, and so I gradually walked toward the room and took a peek.
It'll all be over soon, you rodent. You don't belong here. My son's right. It's no use giving you away. That wouldn't suffice. What we need is a permanent solution. It's time to give thanks.
Thanksgiving!
Toby barked in a tone that would imply he was threatened, and for the past couple of weeks, the only time he was ever anxious was whenever my mother was around. So, as most
Me
people would
too.
do, it would have been reasonable to have kept the dog next
That
to
is
me at all
butt.
times. However, seeing that she never inflicted to have kept the
Oh, I was finna say, why the butt so big?
next to me at all times. However, seeing that she never inflicted physical harm on the dog, I felt that there was no need to intervene, and that ignoring her would be the best course of action. She was indeed known for her bad temper. However, I never saw her as someone who could take the life of a living creature. The night before Thanksgiving, my father finally arrived home from his long business trip, and when I suggested buying dinner for us, he immediately gave me the thumbs up. However, it was different for my mother though. Enraged, she kept raving about how she was the woman of the house and that she was the only one responsible for preparing the meal.
Another thing I had covered the first time I watched this was I think this is supposed to be kind of like Big City Greens. If you see what I'm talking about, like Big City Greens. Yeah.
Woman of the house, and that she was the only one responsible for preparing the meals at home. My father and I looked at each other, puzzled and anxious. Finally, to avoid making matters any more awkward, we let her have her way due to her condition and persistence. The following day, I arrived home from a quick stroll at the grocery store to pick up some sides for the Thanksgiving dinner with my parents. I remember seeing my mother placing a massive platter with a silver lid on the table.
What y'all think is
crawling
in?
its way
What do y'all think is in there? What else would literally be in there? Come on.
the grocery store to pick up some sides for the Thanksgiving dinner with my parents. I remember seeing my mother placing a massive platter with a silver lid on the table. Crawling its way from the kitchen, the aroma was enticing and irresistible. My father and I couldn't wait to dig in. However, as soon as my mother lifted the silver lid, our jaws dropped, and my father stood in horror at the sight of something that was definitely not a turkey. She glanced at my father and me, saying,
I thought of being more creative this year, so bon appetit!
and just like that, Toby went from an adorable pet to a nauseating dinner that would leave me traumatized forever.
Oh my god. That was the end? Ew. So I guess the real question is, did they eat it? Was he good? Was he good? Was he good? Just tell the truth, was he good?
Really, nigga?
Was he good? He was? Okay.
Is this nigga serious?
That one was a little bit shorter. These usually be longer. That one was short though. And I didn't pause too much, because I watched all the way up until, like, she let the sun come in. Like, you know the part where she was like she was petting the dog right after yelling about the dog? That was the last part I seen. But that story was crazy. I didn't know it was gonna have anything to do with the dog. I'm thinking like she's gonna be weird, like she's gonna be evil. But no, she was being evil to the dog. That's crazy because I did not see it going that way, but watch your pets and watch me.